Okay, good evening. Let me call to order this meeting of the City of Bloomington Plan Commission for September 12th, 2022. This is a hybrid meeting. We do have a couple of commissioners joining us remotely, so we will ask for your patience as we still work through the sort of awkwardness of this hybrid interaction. I think we do have a quorum here in person tonight, but let's go ahead and call the roll.
Enright Randolph.
Here.
Ballard.
Here.
Burrell.
Here.
Seabour.
Here.
Cockrum.
Here.
Herrera.
Here. Here.
Kinsey.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
St. John.
Here.
And Whistler.
Here.
Thank you.
And yeah, just for the record, we have Commissioner Smith and Herrera joining us remotely. The rest of us are all here in person. Let me just quickly run through our agenda for the evening. We will have some reports, resolutions, and communications. We will have a consent agenda and then a single petition that we will hear in full tonight. We also have three petitions and an ordinance that have been continued to the October meeting. So let me just run through those in case you were here for those. We will take no action on these tonight. These are items that we'll pick up again in the October meeting. So first, that's PUD DP 24-21, petitioner Robert V. Shaw, the property at North Prow Road, 3500 block of North Hackberry Street. That's been continued to October. SP 06-22, Strasser Construction Company, Inc. This is a property at 3000 and 3070 South Walnut Street. That's been continued to October. Cutters Kirkwood 123 LLC. This is SP 24-22, petition for the property at 115 East Kirkwood Avenue. That has been continued to October. And finally, ZO 40-22, Monroe County Government, the petitioner there, the northeast corner of I-69 and Fullerton Pike. This is a rezone that has also been continued to the October meeting. So tonight we will have a single item consent agenda of DP 3922 and a hearing on petition SP 3822. And before we get to those, though, we have some minutes to approve. And we'll have, I'm not quite sure. It looks like reports, resolutions, and communications, but it also looks like we have a petition there or a request for site plan approval. So I'm sure we'll get a little bit more detail when we get to that. But let's talk about the minutes first. We have minutes from the July 11th meeting to approve. There was no commission meeting in August, so we have the July minutes to approve, and I believe there was a late correction to those minutes. Okay, so has everyone had a chance to check out the minutes and see those corrections? Do we have any other additions, corrections, suggestions, objections to those minutes? If not, do we have a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll move approval of the minutes from July 11th, 2022.
All right, we have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I guess we need to call the roll, right, since we have hybrid here. So let's call the roll on the approval of the minutes.
Ballard.
Yes.
Seaboard. Herrera.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
St. John.
Yes?
Enright Randolph. You don't vote on that one? Okay. Burrell.
Yes.
Cockerham.
Yes.
Kinsey.
Yes.
And Whistler.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, the minutes are approved. We're now on to reports, resolutions, and communications. Jackie, what do you have for us tonight?
Great, thank you. Jackie Scanlon, Development Services Manager. The first item tonight is for SP 3022. I think I intercepted the only public member who came to the building for that. But if you are on Zoom for that petition, it is not being heard. The UDO allows for petitions that are using incentives with less than 50 units to be heard as minor subdivisions by the department, so that they would not have to come here. The UDO also allows the director basically to send up any minor site plans that are complicated or that he thinks you all should be seeing. So you have seen some, obviously, site plans with incentives that are smaller. This particular location has appeared numerous times at the Historic Preservation Commission and also appeared last month at the Board of Zoning Appeals. And we have not received anything but support for the petition. So when they recently changed what types of incentives they were doing, so we were working closely with them again. And the Director Robinson decided we could go ahead and pull it off the agenda and process it as a minor site plan. So they will still be receiving review this week, approval this week, but staff level. So if you were planning to hear it here tonight, you can call the department if you have questions and ask to speak to Karina Passos. Otherwise, that will be approved and keep moving through our pipeline. And then I have a couple of other reports that aren't on the agenda, if that's okay, briefly.
Yes, but before we move on, I just wanted to, just one note, which is that, and I don't know if this matters or not, but on the agenda, it still shows this as a request for major site plan approval. And it sounds like staff is deeming this not a major site plan approval. Is there a distinction in the code?
So the distinction is that they were filed as a major site plan, but if you use the incentives, then we can process you as a minor. So they intended to come here. That was always the plan. And then because it has had so much public vetting already and meets all of our requirements, we decided to let them pull it out.
Got it. And is that just, is that going to be the practice going forward, that whenever there was one of these, you'll just put it on the agenda under the?
Yes, I think this will be pretty
reports?
uncommon. Typically, I think we'll know beforehand. This one, I think, became a little bit more detailed at the Preservation Commission than they sometimes are, and received a lot of public input. So that's why it was determined to take it off, because as you know, people file quite a bit in advance of when you actually see them. So I think typically we won't be doing this kind of at the 11th hour, but we are able to do it, and if so, we can indicate that as well on the agenda so that you'll know that that's what's coming.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. My other item of note was that we need to reapprove the March Plan Commission minutes. We will resend those before the October hearing. I just keep forgetting to have us do that, so I'm saying it here tonight. So you will receive those. That was when there was a question about whether or not there were 5 members in the chambers. So we will send those minutes out and get another vote on those, and then we will be done with that issue. And then the third thing is we will be reporting to council shortly, our report on plexes. So we wanted to just give you kind of the quick details on that as well. If you'll recall, it's ordinance 21-23, when council approved a change to the UDO related to duplexes and triplexes. That was in May of 2021, and then it was signed into law in July of that year. In that ordinance language, the department is to track the requests and approvals for those petitions. So we reported to you in February, and at the February 2022 report, we had spoken to about 13 people for possible duplexes in the R1 through R3. We didn't have any filings at that time. Since February, we've talked to an additional 14 sites, people interested in doing duplexes. Those were all duplexes, ranging from basic questions or just basic development questions to very specific questions about on-site. We have had one approval granted. That was last month at the Board of Zoning Appeals. So our first conditional use duplex in the R3 was approved a couple of weeks ago. That site is in Green Acres, and that particular petitioner has already filed for their building permit and is moving through the process to get that building built. So of the 14, that's one of them. And then one of the others is actually a location on a neighboring street that is within the buffer that requires the 2-year wait. So if those people were to want to move forward with a duplex, they'll have to wait until their time. You'll recall that there's a time constraint every time one of these gets approved. Then there becomes a 150-foot buffer around the property for 2 years. So we have one more that has, I believe, already done a neighborhood association meeting. And that is the farthest along we have. So one that's been approved and one that it seems like it is going forward, and otherwise mostly just kind of general questions or people trying to figure out, if that's something that they want to move forward with. So we just wanted to let you know because we'll be reporting that to council also. And then lastly, as part of that report, last time we let you know where we were with ADUs. So we've had 4 approved this year. So we're at about 30. We were at about 25-ish in February. So we've done, I believe, 4 additional. I think we were at 26 actually in February. So we're at about 30 right now. So some of those being interior, adding or altering space in their existing house, and others doing detached units. Those are the only updates I have. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Jackie. Are there any questions for Jackie on the staff report tonight? Commissioner Kinsey, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for the report on duplexes and ADUs. I'm interested in continuing to hear how that develops, and I wonder if there's, what are the plans from staff about doing more regular, I don't want to say press releases, but maybe I do say press releases on making sure that the public is aware of the status of all this work. And will we or will City Council get a more formal report than the oral presentation you just gave? Or is there an expectation for some sort of more formal written report that includes counts or process aspects?
Sure. At this time, I want to say the enabling legislation doesn't require more formal than us just reporting the numbers to you. I think that's something that we're happy to do. And I'm happy to talk to Director Robinson about how he would want to do that. But so we're reporting to you, and then I'll put it in memo format for the council, because I don't know that will they want me to come there and present it, or will they just want it to be in the packet? We're not sure what they'll prefer yet. So there will be something written in that way. But yeah, I don't know if there are current plans about kind of making the information more available to the public, other than, we could put obviously information on the website for people who access that.
Yeah, I'll just add comment here that I do think that the public is interested in this. Obviously, they were very interested in when we were making approvals for UDO revisions, and I think it's our duty to make sure that they continue to be informed, so that then it isn't a surprise when we maybe make we want to change the procedure in some way, so that there's more constant accountability and responsiveness to what the public demonstrated some interest in through the UDO process. So I just would probably, maybe it's a suggestion, just to be a little bit more open and transparent. And if there's a way to track it on a public website, I think that would be really useful. It might prevent us headaches or complaints later about a lack of public knowledge about the process or how many came through. I mean, if we're flooded, I think they'll want to know that. If there's no response, I think they'll need to know that too. So it's a request, but I really like the idea of having a formal presentation, and if it is in memo format, maybe that gets recorded with us too, so that we're kept aware, or at least ensure that we have some means of making ourselves aware of what the status is.
Sure, that's helpful, and
I
you
would appreciate it. Thank you.
You might recall, I believe Director Robinson, in our budget for this year, is working on some outreach related to ADUs specifically. So it's kind of like ADUs is a little bit ahead in the process than plexes are. You know, when we first did ADUs, we weren't really getting very many. We made some changes, and now we're kind of like further down, looking at possible, you know, providing possible ADU examples to the public, or having public meetings related specifically to those. So I do think that I would think may end up getting mirrored with the Plex process as we kind of work through how to make them work, if that's possible. But yeah, definitely duly noted, and I don't know when the next time the department or the administration will request changes to the current Plex information. I do think there's some interest in kind of letting the current regulations run for a little while to see if, you know, if they point one way or the other. I think having one in a year is pretty low. I think staff was anticipating that it would be low. It takes a while to get things like that off the ground. But yeah, definitely, I'll speak to him about that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Any additional questions for staff? All right. We will then move on to our consent agenda. There is only one item on the consent agenda tonight, and just for anyone who may be watching who doesn't know what the consent agenda is, that's just an opportunity for us to consider those projects that are largely in compliance with the law and don't really require a hearing, or that staff has otherwise deemed to be non-controversial. And so these are petitions that we will approve without a full hearing. And so before we do that, we always provide an opportunity for any commissioner to request a full hearing. So there's one item on the agenda tonight, that's DP 39-22. The petitioner is Summit Woods Phase 1. The property is 2400 South Adams Street. This is a request for primary plat amendment to Phase 1 of the Summit Woods plat to amend the approval cross sections. Are there any commissioners who would like to see that petition removed and receive a full hearing? All right. Are there any other questions or comments on the consent agenda? All right. Can we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move approval of the consent agenda.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Will you please call the roll?
Okay. Whistler?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Cockrum? Yes. Ballard?
Yes.
Burrell?
Yes.
Seaboard?
Yes.
Herrera?
Yes.
Kinsey?
Yes.
And St. John?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. The consent agenda is approved. We are now on to our petitions for the evening, of which we have one. This is SP 38-22. The petitioner is University Properties. This is a property at 420 East 19th Street, and the request is for major site plan approval to allow construction of a 6-story mixed-use building in the mixed-use student housing zoning district. And we have, I believe, Gabriel Holbrow here to present the case. Take it away, Gabriel.
Thank you. Pull it up on the computer.
You may need to pull your microphone pretty close in order to pick up here tonight.
Okay, I am Gabriel Holbrow, zoning and long-range planner for the city of Bloomington. As President Whistler said, this is a request for major site plan approval for a new mixed-use building in the neighborhood just west of Memorial Stadium. The site comprises 4 existing parcels on the south side of East 19th Street, going from Grant Street on the west to Dunn Street on the east. The current zoning is mixed-use student housing. In the 2018 comprehensive plan, this is designated, the future land use zone, or land use area is designated as neighborhood residential. The existing land uses on the site include two multifamily developments, multifamily dwelling structures. Together they have 30 bedrooms, and there are also 2 single-family dwellings. The proposed land use is 1 mixed-use building with uses including student housing or dormitory, office, and small retail sales. The surrounding uses to the north is a mixed-use building under construction by the same developers. To the south and west are existing multifamily dwellings and student housing or dormitory. And to the east is Memorial Stadium and IU parking. The petitioner is requesting major site plan approval to construct the mixed-use building with 6 stories and a basement and a building floor plate of just over 24,000 square feet. The proposed building will contain approximately 4,847 gross square feet of commercial space. That includes 2,380 square feet of retail and 2,465 square feet of office space. For the residential component, the proposed building will contain 75 dwelling units with a total of 135 bedrooms. Major site plan approval is required for developments that contain more than 50 dwelling units. The proposed site plan includes 75 dwelling units. This is the proposed site plan with 19th Street to the north on the top of the image, Grant Street to the west on the left, and Dunn Street to the east on the right. As you can see, the building footprint takes up most of the available room on the site. This is a rendering of the proposed building from the northeast, approximately from Dunn Street. You can see 19th Street leading up the hill on the right side of the image. As you can see, this grade slopes up from Dunn Street, getting higher as you travel west on 19th Street. So Dunn Street is at a lower elevation than Grant, which would be at the back of the image. The ground floor along Dunn Street is proposed to have retail space of 2,380 square feet. On the second floor along Dunn Street, there's an amenity space for the apartment residents, including a covered outdoor terrace on the second floor at the northeast corner, which you can see there. This is a rendering from the north, from 19th Street. You can see the grade rising to the west as you move right in the image. The large windows on the ground floor at the bottom center of the image, right by that tree, between that tree and that person shown there. And also the second floor in that brown area, there are proposed to be office space. That's totaling 2,465 square feet. Also on the ground floor on this side is 1 dwelling unit with a direct exterior door, and you can see farther up one of the drive entrances to internal parking. You can just barely make out a car, the image of a car coming out of that drive entrance, partially hidden behind a tree there. On the 4 upper stories are a mix of studios, 1-bedroom and 3-bedroom dwelling units. In total, the proposed building has 75 dwelling units, including 3 on the ground floor along 19th Street. And together, all the units have a total of 135 bedrooms. Now, this is a rendering from the northwest, approximately from Grant Street. We're walking sort of around the building. Down the hill along 19th Street to the left, you can see that same car pulling out of the driveway. Coming this way on the ground floor along 19th are 2 more dwelling units with direct exterior doors. Going around the corner on the Grant Street side to the right, there's a second drive entrance to the internal parking, which leads to internal parking on the second floor of the building. Let me touch on some of the UDO requirements and how the site plan is meeting them. The staff report in your packet goes over all the requirements. Starting from the outside, the building is set back at least the minimum required 15 feet from all property lines. For pedestrian and bicycle facilities, Dunn Street is classified as a general urban street typology per the transportation plan. So that means that a minimum 10-foot tree plot and a minimum 10-foot sidewalk or multi-use path are required. The plan provides a 10-foot sidewalk and a tree plot that varies in width from 14 to 21 feet along Dunn Street, so that's as required. 19th Street and Grant Street are classified as the neighborhood residential street typology, so they require a minimum 5-foot tree plot and a minimum 6-foot sidewalk. That's just what's shown. Portions of the sidewalk provided outside the public right-of-way and on private property, which you can see there are a few little corners of the little parts of the sidewalk. Those will need to be placed in a pedestrian access easement to be recorded before final occupancy, so a condition has been added for that. The proposed site plan has 2 drive access points, as we touched on when we were looking at the renderings. One is on 19th Street and the second on Grant Street. No drive access is proposed for Dunn Street, and that's required by the UDO since Dunn Street is assigned the higher functional classification of the 3 streets. The driveway on 19th Street, which you see at the top of the image there, leads directly to a ramp that provides access to the first floor level parking. The driveway also connects to a second ramp that intersects perpendicularly, goes off to the left there, and then comes around down into the basement level parking. The petitioner has aligned the drive on 19th Street to be directly across from the drive on the north side of 19th in order to minimize potential turning conflicts. The driveway on Grant Street over on the left side of the image leads to a ramp that provides access to the second floor level parking. Let's zoom in on Grant Street a little bit. The drive on Grant Street is 58.54 feet from the intersection with 19th Street to the north and 85.44 feet from the existing driveway for the property to the south. On local streets, including 19th and Grant, no drive is allowed within 100 feet of an intersecting street or within 50 feet of another driveway, unless approved by the city engineer. So with just over 85 feet from the intersection to the north, this drive location does not meet the normal distance standard. But this particular configuration has been approved by the city engineer and therefore is compliant with the UDO. You'll notice that the petitioner has proposed a curb design incorporating 2 on-street parking spaces on Grant Street, just north of the drive entrance. Title 15 of Bloomington Municipal Code does not currently allow parking on either side of the street on this block of Grant. However, staff is supportive of providing on-street parking at this location and intends to propose an update to Title 15 to allow parking on this block. Of course, as you know, on-street parking in the public right-of-way is outside the scope of site plan review, and it doesn't count toward minimum vehicle parking requirements or against maximum vehicle parking allowances, so that's just for your information there. Back to the overall site plan, the total impervious surface coverage is at 70% of the lot, right at the maximum limit in the UDO, but still compliant. The proposed building has a floor plate, that's essentially how much ground the building covers, of approximately 24,138 square feet. The use-specific standards in the UDO for student housing or dormitory have a maximum building floor plate in the MS district of 10,000 square feet, and this is clearly over that. However, there's no maximum building floor plate for petitions that earn both the affordable housing and the sustainable development incentives, and this petition is utilizing both incentives. For the affordable housing incentives, the petition is not proposing to provide any permanently income-restricted dwelling units on site. Instead, they'll make a payment in lieu to the City of Bloomington Housing Development Fund, which is an option authorized by the UDO. The final payment amount is not yet determined, but it'll be based per the administrative manual on a per bedroom cost estimate multiplied by 15% of the total number of bedrooms in the project. So for the 135 bedrooms proposed in this project, the payment will be based on the cost estimate for 21 eligible bedrooms. The per bedroom cost estimate is anticipated to be around $20,000 for a total payment around $420,000. For the sustainable development incentives, the petitioner is pursuing silver certification from the National Green Building Standard, NGBS, Green Certified Rating System. The petitioner executed a contract with SK Collaborative LLC, an NGBS verifier, on August 22nd to verify attainment of the certification, and the petitioner has submitted a preliminary scorecard. It's included in your packet for this case. The preliminary scorecard shows that the project is on track to achieve silver certification. The petitioner is not utilizing any of the potential height bonuses from the incentives. The maximum allowed height in the MS district is 6 stories without incentives, and the proposed building is 6 stories tall. For the building design, the proposed building exterior is a composition of distinct facade areas distinguished from each other by materials, height and roof form, and outward projections or inward recesses, while sharing patterns that unite the areas across all sides of the building. The lower floors are characterized by exterior finished materials evoking masonry, including stone veneer, two types of brick veneer, and split-face concrete blocks. Above them, the upper floors are characterized by exterior finished materials, including 5 types of fiber cement and metal panels, and they feature patterns of residential windows, balconies, and metal railings. The proposed building design complies with UDO standards for materials, facade design, patterns, eaves and roofs, 360-degree architecture, windows, and street addresses. The UDO requires a primary pedestrian entry incorporating specified architectural details for the facade facing Dunn Street. The pedestrian entry on Dunn Street is prominently identified by a slightly projecting first-story facade module. That's the part that shows up in that gray stone color. There's a metal canopy that sticks out with a large display of the building address number, an outdoor terrace above the entrance, and an overhanging canopy roof over the corner, among other architectural details. Moving inside the building, parking is proposed for 3 levels of the building, 39 spaces in the basement, accessed by a ramp from the drive on 19th Street, 36 spaces on the first floor, accessed by another ramp directly aligned with the drive on 19th Street, and 38 spaces on the second floor, accessed by a ramp from the drive on Grant Street. Altogether, that's 113 vehicle parking spaces. This includes 5 accessible parking spaces as required by the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, and also required by the UDO. The maximum vehicle parking allowance for the student housing or dormitory use is 3/4 of a space per bedroom. So for the proposed 135 bedrooms, up to 101 parking spaces can be allowed. Then for the non-residential uses, the office space can have up to 8 parking spaces and the retail up to 9 parking spaces based on their gross square footage. All 3 uses together have a maximum vehicle parking allowance of 118 parking spaces, so that's more than the 113 provided. 5 of the parking spaces on the second floor are outfitted with standard electric vehicle charging stations as required by the UDO. These are marked in the southeast corner of the garage in the lower right of the image. It doesn't show up very well here, but you can see some little squiggles, which is writing in the 5 that are in the bottom right corner there. If you look at the packet, you'll be able to see that those are electric vehicle charging spaces. Zooming in on the eastern end of the first floor, we can see the proposed bicycle parking. The plan shows parking for 32 bicycles, including 11 hoops, providing 22 long-term Class 1 spaces in a bike room at the bottom of the image. And then 5 hoops at the top of the image, providing 10 short-term Class 2 spaces outside near the corner of 19th and Dunn. That's there at the top. The residential use requires at least 27 spaces, and the non-residential use requires another 6 spaces for a total requirement of 33 bicycle spaces. So as you can see, they're 1 short. A condition has been added. For the different types of bicycle parking required, the 27 bicycle parking spaces for the residential use have to include at least 7 long-term Class 1 spaces. There are 22 spaces in the bike room, so they're well above that limit. They also have to provide at least 14 covered short-term Class 2 spaces. The non-residential component also has to provide an additional 6 covered short-term Class 2 spaces, so 14 plus 6 is 20 overall, but there are 10 shown outside. They're also partially covered by an overhanging canopy on the second floor, but only partially covered, so they don't quite qualify as covered spaces at the moment. So there needs to be a little bit more covered bicycle parking, short-term bicycle parking provided. That's mentioned in the condition that staff recommends. For landscaping, the proposed plan provides 4 new street trees on Dunn, 8 new street trees on 19th, and 3 new street trees on Grant, all is required. Interior trees are provided on the south side of the building, which you can see at the bottom of the image, including 3 large canopy trees, 2 evergreen trees, 2 small canopy trees, exceeding the minimum requirements. At least 8 shrubs are required, and the plan is providing twice that, 16 shrubs distributed near the pedestrian entrances to the building. In conclusion, the petition complies with all requirements of the Unified Development Ordinance once the recommended conditions are met. The proposed development will provide a net increase in housing in a location that fulfills the comprehensive plan's description of where student-oriented housing is most appropriate. Specifically, that's areas away from downtown, within easy walking distance to the IU campus, already containing a relatively high percentage of student-oriented housing, and with direct access to university-provided parking and the university transit system. The development will also provide space for small-scale neighborhood serving retail consistent with the character of the neighborhood. The development's commitment to sustainable design, as demonstrated by the NGBS Green Certified Rating System, will assist Bloomington's efforts for climate change mitigation. And the petition will support housing affordability both indirectly by increasing the overall supply of housing in the community and directly by making a substantial payment into the City of Bloomington Housing Development Fund. With that, the Planning and Transportation Department's recommendation is that the Commission adopt the proposed findings and approve SB 3822 with 7 conditions. That a grading permit must be obtained before land disturbing activity. That with the grading permit, there needs to be revised plans for bicycle parking showing at least 33 spaces in total, including at least 20 fully covered short-term Class 2 spaces. Plans for the grading permit also must contain a lighting and photometric plan showing that any outdoor lighting complies with UDO requirements. Architecture and electrical plans that verify compliance with UDO requirements for solar-ready building design must be submitted and approved prior to issuance of a certificate of zoning compliance for the building permit. As mentioned before, the petitioner must record a pedestrian access easement for all portions of public sidewalk on private property out of the public right-of-way prior to issuance of final occupancy. And also prior to final occupancy, the petitioner must make an agreement with the city establishing the amount of a payment in lieu for affordable housing and must complete the payment prior to final occupancy. And finally, the site plan does not approve signage. Sign permit will need to be applied for any signage. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabriel. Is there a representative of the petitioner who would like to speak tonight?
I believe we have at least 2 members of the design team.
Hi, this is Ryan Strasser. I'm on Zoom here tonight. I just want to kind of say on behalf of the University Properties team, Lamar Architecture and Design, and Smith Design Group, we're happy you guys are here in the petition. We're here to answer any questions that you may have. Gabriel's done a great job of putting a summary together of the project, and we've been able to work together with him on this for the last couple months. So we appreciate you here on our petition.
Thank you. Are there any questions from commissioners, either for staff or for the petitioner? Commissioner Kinsey.
All right, thank you for the presentation. I'm glad to see this developing. I have a couple of questions, one related to the sustainability commitments, which I'm happy to see being utilized for this. I wonder if this might be a staff question, Gabriel. I hope you can answer it. I wondered, what's the staff's point of view on this level of National Green Building Standards? Is this a an appropriate level of commitment to sustainability? Is there any sense of where we are on this? I know one time I got myself in trouble when I started to talk about LEED certification, and that apparently is not where it's at right now. So I just want to make sure I kind of know, what is it? Are we really striving for the best sustainability certification available? How does the staff make that determination if this is appropriate or legit? Is there some guidance on this that you guys follow?
Services manager. I would say the basic answer is when we were doing the UDO update to talk about the different incentives and how they were working and how we could improve them, one of the things we did was look to the Environmental Commission for guidance about which sort of, I'm not thinking of the word, but like which kind of guidelines make the most sense and then how to utilize those. So we are confident with what is in there based on the feedback we got, and that council was supportive, knowing that there are a number of council members who are very kind of interested in that topic and very knowledgeable. We have gotten some feedback, not about this specific one, but about some of the things we put in that maybe we'll end up needing to tweak next year when we come back through for our 2023 updates. But I think at this point, we're confident with what is being presented.
Great. I mean, I'm glad to hear that. I think the checklist or the rubric that's enclosed with this petition that affords certain points, and I mean, it's quite comprehensive, and it looks good as a layperson reviewing these things, but I definitely want to make sure we're pushing on the most rigorous and current standards. So
yeah, I think that we are doing that also, trying to monitor these just as we did previously and improve them as we can every year.
Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm. I have a couple more if we want to.
Please continue.
Okay, all right. Okay, so one of my other questions is about just clarifying the point on, or the access, that there's no access from Dunn Street, that this is only accessible from 19th. And if that's true, I thought on the rendering you showed that it looked like the address was facing Dunn. And this might be a totally trivial question, and I could be reading it sideways and mistaken in this, but it does make it look like Dunn is the front, and I just wonder if that's, a trivial just design issue right now, or if it is intending to be a Dunn-facing address. It was on the one that had the big 420 on the front of it. It looked to me like that. Yeah, isn't that done?
The 420 address is for 19th Street.
Okay.
So that may be not the best placement of the address.
Yeah, I realize that these aren't real and those people aren't really there, but yeah. But yeah,
No, that's a very good point.
Yeah, and just to, yeah, okay, all right. Okay, thank you, clarifying that. I didn't look at that.
And by the way, just, I believe you know when you spoke, but there's no vehicle access on Dunn Street.
Right.
Of course, there's pedestrian access on Dunn Street.
Right, yeah, so I wonder about the placement of that. Just, thinking about safety concerns and people dropping things off. If they're not familiar with the door, will they go to where the big block letter address is on Dunn? I'm noticing this right now on the huge Verve development that, seems great, and I overheard some students talking about how much they love living there, but as a person who drives down Walnut, often seeing drop-offs, from Uber drop-offs to, just all sorts of drop-offs, and even the bus that stops nearby there. There's no cutout for that drop-off to be made on Walnut, and understandably, we didn't plan for anything like that. And I want to make sure that it's clear to people dropping things off or picking people up that Dunn may not be the best street to do that. That Grant would be the better street, or the, I guess the next side, the back side, going west. So to think about how do we signal to people not living in the space where they need to go. So I don't know if there was any discussion about that in this development, and if there's any way to clarify where is the proper drop-off point for food or Uber pickups or whatever it is. Is there can you show me that on this rendering?
Maybe the petitioner would be good to get the petitioner to speak to this, but on this image here, this actually doesn't show it the best, but based on the floor plans in the architectural set, which are in your packet, right by that tree you see at the bottom of the image, there's a little bit of a red-looking brick, and then an entry underneath that. That's going to be one of two main ways that someone would walk into the building to get to the elevators to go upstairs. The other one would be farther up the street in another recessed area. So the UDO requires a prominent pedestrian entry on Dunn Street, which is provided. But functionally speaking, the main pedestrian entries for residents or people visiting residents would be these entrances on 19th Street.
Yeah, I guess I'm more aware now of the number of pickups, drop-offs from other vehicles. And I just wonder if there's a way to help guide those drivers into this unit. What would, I mean, where, maybe the petitioner has an idea for where this would happen. I mean, you know, 19th would make sense as well. I mean, certainly that makes sense. But is there, it would just be along the side street and there's parking on one side or no sides?
On 19th Street, there's parking on the south side only.
Okay.
Yeah, this is Ryan Strasser. Basically, we kind of see this building as having two faces, one towards Dunn, which does have that primary retail entrance there. And then like Gabriel pointed out, the primary kind of, I'll say, tenant entrance is right there kind of next to where the limestone and the brick is. As we further our design, we will have to probably integrate a little more wayfinding signage and everything like that, with probably some kind of sign right there on the building. In general, the 420 address that ties to 19th and it is because that's what that property on the corner, their current address is facing towards 19th. So yeah, we definitely probably have some more signage that will have to get done and go through the signage permitting process as the design comes along.
Yeah, thank you. And I don't know if staff has any thoughts about this. We might talk about it later, but I am concerned about the drop-off pickups and what these large buildings where that happens more frequently just by the nature of their density. So we can talk about that later. Yeah, I'll let someone else go here. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions for staff? Commissioner Cockrum, go ahead.
So I have a couple of questions. First off, the height of this building, how does it compare to the building that was approved on the north side of 19th Street? And then also, how does it compare to Evolve?
Gabriel, you want me to hit on that?
I can try to look that up if you give me a moment.
Ryan may know.
Yeah, Ryan may know.
Yeah, I mean, the building that we're under construction with on the north side of 19th is 6 levels. This building is also 6 levels, so it will be within a couple feet, one way or another, because they are both 6 levels and kind of the two-story podium above ground with 4 levels of the residential above it, and we kind of try to stick to that same format, floor-to-floor height. Evolve kind of starts going uphill, and I don't know its exact height there, but I think it is also kind of sits on a podium because of the grade change, and then it's probably 4 stories or 5 right there as well, kind of on that individual building that has the retail under it.
Okay.
And just so comparative, it's kind of right within the stepping down the hill there.
Perfect. Oh, great. And I was thinking it was going to be about the same height, but I was just curious.
Yeah.
Yeah, one question for Jackie and Gabriel. Again, our code height is how high again? Just,
Code height for this district is 6 stories, not to exceed 70 feet
okay,
above median grade. Evolve, the maximum height according to that measurement was 72 feet.
perfect.
I'm not sure if the code was different at the time or I got a variance.
Yeah, so the previous code measured height from the lowest grade on site to the highest grade on the building. So that, just quickly looking at the original Evolve report, is at the northeast corner of the site at the corner of 18th and Dunn is about 72 feet tall.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Okay, and then my next question has to do with the payment in lieu. How is that formula figured? I see that it's 15% of the cost of of the number of bedrooms based on, I read it in here, but how is that determined? Is that determined something that, or where does that come from?
Sure, so the 15%, the 20,000 for 15% is actually determined, was previously determined and is in the administrative manual. And it was determined initially, I think, in conjunction with the hand department and the economic and sustainable development department. And then it has, I'm going to say the language wrong, so let me look it up. It is related to the annual housing and neighborhood development numbers. Let's see. Yeah, so it discusses a little bit in the administrative manual how to find them, but it says calculations may use or be based upon one or more of the following methods: the housing and urban development annual rents based on area and median income, and then they usually do rental rates per unit or per bedroom, and it lists other items they can take into account, such as utility rates. It says we will kind of revisit that every year. I don't think we've changed it since we put it into place with the 2019-2020 ordinance update. So it has been the current rate of 15%, 20,000 a bed since it was enacted.
Okay. And is this something that the developer offered, or is it something that's required under, or as part of the incentives or?
So in the incentives that, the incentive changes that we made earlier this year that went through Plan Commission and then approved by council, the payment in lieu, the way that a payment in lieu was possible was changed. And became a little bit more streamlined for a developer to be able to look at it. Previously, there were some other steps that they needed to go through as kind of a payment in lieu could be done as a last resort, as opposed to on-site units or units in that general location. Now it has kind of become an equal option. So it's up to the developer which they would like to do, if they'd like to do any, if they want to pursue the incentives.
Okay. And then last question on this one here is, the final payment is yet to be determined. Can you explain? That seems a little.
Sure, I think that's a reference to what I was saying before, where we're actually allowed to update it annually, but the numbers that we have existing currently that we're using for the administration is the number that Gabriel gave you. I think we were waiting for feedback, you can correct me if I'm wrong, from the Housing and Neighborhood Development Department that we were sticking with that number at the time when we wrote the report.
Okay, great. Okay, and then, well, great, that answers those questions.
Great.
And the last one is for the developer. You have retail and office space within the building. Do you mind me asking, is this something that you're going to put out for lease, or is it going to be owner occupied, or what are your plans for that?
Yeah, right now, the plan is for the retail space that faces Dunn Street to be put out for lease. The office space that is kind of going up the hill right there, the university properties plans to use that as a new leasing office for them.
And remind me, how big is the retail space?
Let me get the exact number here. Zoom in. I think it's around 3,000 square feet.
The retail space
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
shown on the plans is 2,380 square feet.
Okay, I've got.
Yeah.
I just found it too. Okay, great. All right, thanks.
Yep, that's it.
All right, that's all I have.
All right, thank you. Additional questions from commissioners? One more from Commissioner Kinsey.
Yeah, I have a question about sidewalks and just I understand the description about what some of the accommodations that need to be made to connect private sidewalks or private property, but will this make the sidewalk continuous on Dunn? So where the sidewalk is and the new on Dunn, it will be continuous with the sidewalk that is now there, that's part of the Evolve complex, where that's new sidewalks. So that will be continuous. It won't jut out anymore because that's part of the new code, right?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, good. And then just to clarify, where is the private property then that's getting a sidewalk or needs to be adapted?
Let me pull up the site plan and I can point it out. So on here, I hope you can see there's a thick black line that makes a rectangle around it that's just in from the street. So if you look on the right side over at Dunn, you see the sidewalk on Dunn, the 10-foot wide sidewalk, matches up with, actually you can't see very clearly, but it matches up with the sidewalk to the south, and then it kind of bends a little bit to the east to line up with the sidewalk to the north. And you can see it bends a little tiny bit of it, peeks into that black box, so that's private property. So most of that sidewalk is in the right of way, but there's a little tiny bit that's on the property, just because of how the design worked out. Parts of it are on the private property, but only a small sliver. On the north side, the property line is not exactly parallel with the sidewalk, but it generally aligns with the north side of the sidewalk, the part of the sidewalk that's closest to the street. So most of that sidewalk is on the private property, and that has to do with the available width in the right-of-way for the street and the parking and the tree plot. And then around on Grant Street, it's a similar situation where most of the sidewalk is on the private property.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Can I just follow up on that? If you could, it looks like in this particular view, there's a single sidewalk that sort of bends into the property, and does that become essentially where the entrance to the building is? Because if I look at the renderings, particularly the northeast rendering, it looks as if there are separate sidewalks, one sidewalk and then another sort of paved path into the main entrance of the building. Which one of those is accurate, or am I just reading this wrong? Yeah, see, here you show just a single, and it looks here as if there's the sidewalk with the person near the street and then sort of another sidewalk or another paved entry that goes right to the entrance of the building.
Yeah, so this is something where the submitted site plan does not match the rendering exactly. If we go by what's in the rendering, you can see that the sidewalk is where that person who's closer to us, are they jogging? I can't really tell. That's the 10-foot wide sidewalk, and then closer to the entrance where there's the people milling around and you can see the umbrellas. That is paved area, but it is not sidewalk. It's on the property and it's a little patio area. The configuration of the patio area is different on the site plan. I don't know if the petitioner, Ryan Strasser, or someone else wants to speak to that.
Yeah, it would be great if you could, because it doesn't seem, obviously these are not consistent, and it seems like there's a little retaining wall there in the rendering. So I'm just really curious, how does the sidewalk interface with that main building entrance in reality?
Yeah, I think this is Ryan. I think we had the renderings done while Smith Design was still finishing up the orientation of that sidewalk to connect to that'd be the north on that end. And initially the sidewalk, they were trying to run straight, which would have left that like 5 foot, 4 foot, 5 foot kind of strip between sidewalk and kind of a outdoor kind of area right there on that end. And when they realigned that to make the connection from the Evolve to the other project on the north side, they had to put that kind of turn in there. And I think that all had to do with, on the north side project, the way all of the storm utilities and everything line up, it made the sidewalk have to come back from that intersection there, so.
Does that mean there's no longer an outdoor seating area at the retail space that, as it's depicted in the rendering?
There is still planned to be a small outdoor area out there. It's just that it's going to have to be adjusted still as part of the grading permit to meet both the 70% and to get the sidewalk to align.
I noticed that Jason Barazano has his hand up in the Zoom. I believe you can take yourself off mute.
Hey, sorry. Yeah, it wouldn't let me get off mute earlier. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you, Jason.
Okay, yeah, no, I was just raising my hand to confirm what Ryan had said. When it comes to walks and drives right now, the site plan is the most accurate. Our renderings are not representative of the final site plan. So that was it.
Yeah, because right now Smith Design is still working with everyone at the city there to orient to meet some of those drive connections, or not drive, but sidewalk connections. But our intention is, before filing for grading permit, to have that kind of worked out with a small kind of outdoor area right there on Dunn Street.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question, Brad.
Okay, we'll get to you in just a minute. I think Commissioner Seabour was first, and then we'll go to Commissioner Smith. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. I think a couple pretty detailed questions, probably more oriented to Mr. Strausser or his team. Just as I was reviewing the plan and appreciated Gabriel's presentation, realizing that the building setbacks addressed some of the concerns I have sometimes on other sites when people are pulling out of driveways and there being sidewalks immediately adjacent to them. This site plan has a bit of a setback, and so just appreciating that. But as I look at the site plan, especially the driveway off of 19th Street, it looks like there is a box of sorts to the west, and I'm going to guess what it is, but I don't know what it is from looking at this plan. I was just curious if you could let us know what that box appears to be, if it will be above ground or below ground.
If you're talking about the box, I think you are. That is probably just showing the top of the fire department vault there. It's right to the west of where you come into that drive off of 19th. That should just be the top of that kind of water pit where the fire line comes in and a fire department connection is. So it shouldn't be a box that's truly setting up that would be blocking view as you're pulling up and out.
Great. That's what I was guessing. I saw some water-looking things in the utility plan. Thanks. The other question I have is regarding the parking and especially the electric vehicle charging spaces. And this is more just a question of curiosity, but I don't think the parking spaces are necessarily dimensioned on the site plan that I'm looking at, but just knowing how parking garages can sometimes be, trying to get as much into a small space as possible. I'm just curious what the size of those are and how the physical space implications of putting an EV charger, how that potentially makes it even more of a constrained parking space for vehicles. So just curious to understand how that may all fit.
Yeah, I'll probably let Jason with Lamar answer that. He may know the exact space size on there and also the drive aisle width.
Yeah, the drive aisle width, I believe, is 24 feet at the current plan, and the spaces are 9 by 18 at the moment.
Okay, and I assume maybe within that 18-foot depth, we'll somehow also need to have space for EV chargers, or is that independent of that dimension?
That would be on the front wall in front of the space, but I think at the 18-foot depth, we're, I think, what is that? Is that 2 feet over the kind of minimum UDO requirement? So that should provide plenty of space. We may have to put like a parking block or something up there to kind of denote so there's not an over pull into that, but that is the idea. The other thing I know on the other project we were looking at doing is trying to align that EV charger kind of, I'll say, in line with the column grid that kind of separates, like you get like 3 spaces in a row, then you get that column grid with an 18 to 24 inch concrete column. And we were looking at trying to mount those in that location so they wouldn't be in front of the vehicles.
Yeah, cool. Thank you for answering those questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, President Whistler. I think maybe it's a question for Mr. Strausser. And thanks for the presentation and the discussion. The building, I'm looking at what's showing me up there. How wide is the building, or long, or whatever you want to call it? The greatest width.
Yeah, let me see if I can pull that off of a plan.
So while you're doing that, I'll tell you what I was wondering when we were talking about there's no entrance off one of the sides. I'm thinking, will you say something about the egress for, God forbid anything would happen that like fire or anything that people need to get out of the building? Can you point that out to me or tell me how people are getting out of the building if they need to?
Yeah, kind of 2 things, I guess. So the overall length of the building is around 282, 283 feet. Overall width of the building is right at 88 feet wide. The building has 2 stair and elevator cores that are basically at opposite ends, probably ballpark at around 30 feet or so from the end of each building. So basically in line with the International Building Code and NFPA fire codes, those are separated by over 1/3 of the diagonal distance across any of the greatest space in the building. So that allows, it gives basically 2 ways of egress, and both the stairs have a path that leads directly to 19th Street. So in actuality, they're about 220 feet apart. So it's given people, if something were happening on one end of the building, they can go, they always have 2 directions they can go. And the stairs are located close enough to the ends of the corridors that they don't exceed any dead end requirements for the floor, for the corridors either. So then when it comes to the parking garage egress, you can go into those stairwells or someone can go out the parking garage door as well. So basically all of our egressing's in line with both the International Building Code and the National Fire Prevention Code.
Right, and those are based, and I'm a lay person on this, they're based on size and then number of people that may be in the building at any one time?
Yeah, correct. Basically, the width of your egress components, the stairs and the corridors and everything are dictated by the occupant load of the building and how many stories. The fact the building's fully sprinkled, that makes adjustments to everything. then you go in with all that, then it basically you have to make a certain separation of the two means of egress and everything. And for this building, 2 stairs separated like this with stair widths of 44 inches, that all complies for this building. And then just separating how they discharge, but letting them discharge onto the public way is what's required.
Right. Well, thank you, Mr. Strausser. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from commissioners? Questions for staff or for the petitioner? All right, seeing none, we will then go to public comment. And if you are here in the chambers and would like to make comment, just step up to the podium. If you're online and would like to make comment, just click on the reactions button on Zoom and then click to raise your hand. We'll recognize you to the best of our ability in the order that you raised your hand. And in either case, you'll have 5 minutes to give your public comment. Not seeing any here in the chambers. Any hands raised online? All right. Last call for public comment. All right. Seeing none, then we are back to the commission for any final questions, comments, or a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve SP 3822 with the findings, to adopt the findings and approve with the 7 conditions outlined in the staff report.
All right, so the motion is to adopt the findings and approve the petition with the 7 conditions as outlined in the packet. And I believe I heard a second there. Was that?
Yes, sir.
All right, and a second from Commissioner Smith. Any final comment or questions before we call the roll? All right,
Yeah,
Commissioner Kinsey.
so my comment is in regard to the points I was making about concern about just drop-offs, pickups, and if there's any way in the signage and the signaling, I suppose best through signage, where this can best and safely happen, and whether that's 19th or on Grant, not done. I think that would be great. Of course, you know, if a business is facing Dunn, then that's a different matter. But for residents, I just hope there's a way to kind of signal that for safety reasons, to not clog Dunn. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that traffic. So to me, that's a concern about these more dense developments. I'm definitely in favor of them, but I definitely want to make sure that we do it with regard to pedestrian safety, bike safety, and people driving, so they're not slamming on their brakes trying to not hit the person who stops suddenly to drop something off. So I think that, to me, is an issue. I don't think it's not a site plan issue, so I don't know quite how to address it in this. But I think, and then I think the other thing is, I'm really pleased to see the continuous sidewalks that this affords, particularly the fact that 19th has no sidewalk whatsoever, and people I see all the time walking in the street there, and that's very dangerous. So I'm really happy that there will be a sidewalk on 19th, and that it will allow sufficient sidewalking on Dunn, because again, that's going to be more populated. So the more students we put in this wonderful dedicated student housing space that's close to campus, the more they're going to walk, and they need to use the sidewalks to be safe. So that's great. I really, you know, the renderings are a little unclear about sidewalks, but it looks to me like it will make this whole area safer on Dunn. There's no culvert, there's a big culvert there now. That looks horribly unsafe. And I'm glad what this will allow. In addition, it's appropriate given what we are focusing on in terms of developing student housing near to campus so students can walk or take campus buses to get to campus. This is great to see, this infill in some really old property that probably deserves to be, upgraded. So thanks to the developer and to the staff for working through this petition.
Thank you. Yeah, I would just echo those sentiments. First of all, I think it's great and perfectly appropriate that the building be addressing the pedestrian entrance on Dunn Street, and particularly at the retail space, be addressing Dunn Street at a pedestrian level. But it does create some confusion. And I believe now most of, if not all of, the major ride-sharing services and delivery services allow a particular property to designate a drop-off and pickup point within their apps. Would love to see if staff could get some detail around that, if we could provide guidance to petitioners on how to designate a pickup and drop-off location for those rideshare and delivery apps, and perhaps we could even make that a condition of approval in the future, that they do submit a designated a point so that we can better control traffic flow. I think that would be really, really useful. And I just want to make another comment regarding the renderings. I know it's not the renderings that we're approving, it's the site plan, but it's really confusing for us and for the public when they don't match. And it would really be helpful if we could make sure that before we get to a meeting that the renderings are consistent with the site plan. In this case, I know the sidewalk and outdoor seating area was off, but also just it shows kind of some green space and a tree to the south of the building where, there's another 6-story building there, and it would really be helpful to be able to see the actual context. Would prevent a lot of questions about height and how they address each other if those renderings were more up to date. But I do think it's a great project, and I think there's a lot to like here, and happy to support it. Any other final comments? Commissioner Seabour.
Yeah, I guess just following up on a little bit of this discussion on pickup drop-off for this site, but I think it can apply more generally to other sites and existing and future. But I think this is just, from my perspective, where the city has so many different boards and commissions and different responsibilities, and thinking specifically about transportation, there's many, many commissions. And I think this topic is something that ultimately is a Title 15 topic that City Council would weigh in, and I think probably would be best suited for discussion in our current parking commission, where there's tools to regulate how quickly spaces may turn over, or potentially designate loading space for short-term parking versus long-term versus resident permit. But that is just a really good point that you guys are bringing up, and I think is something that we as the administration and staff and other commissions should be looking at in more detail. But just wanted to share that little insight on a very important topic.
Thank you. Any other comments? Questions? All right. Well, we have a motion and a second. Let's go ahead and call the roll on the motion to approve. What's the number? SP 3822. Thank you.
Ballard?
Yes.
Seabour?
Yes.
Whistler?
Yes.
Kinsey?
Yes.
Cockrum?
Yes.
Burrell?
Yes.
Herrera?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
And St. John?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Motion carries, and petition is approved. I believe that's our last agenda item this evening. Are there any announcements? Final questions or comments before we adjourn? All right. Well, we will see you all in October. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.